Yeah, I think the same thing. I think if you look at the lines of work, I kind of break it out into three verticals or three buckets. The first is kind of national security and sovereignty, and that's your intelligence, the Defense Department, Homeland Security. The second line of work is what I refer to as economic nationalism, and that is Wilbur Ross at Commerce, Steve Mnuchin at Treasury, Lighthizer at Trade, Peter Navarro, Stephen Miller, these people that are rethinking how we're going to reconstruct our trade arrangements around the world. The third, broadly, line of work is what is deconstruction of the administrative state. And if you, so I think the three most important things. I think one of the most pivotal moments in modern American history was his immediate withdrawal from TPP. That got us out of a trade deal and let our sovereignty come back to ourselves. The people, the mainstream media don't get this, but we're already working in consultation with the Hill. People are starting to think through a whole raft of amazing and innovative bilateral relationships, bilateral trading relationships with people that will reposition America in the world as a fair trading nation and start to bring jobs, high value added manufacturing jobs back to the United States of America. On the national security part, it was certainly the first two EOs that you've started to see implemented here over the last couple of days under General Kelly. And that is, the rule of law is going to exist when you talk about our sovereignty and you talk about immigration. General Kelly and Attorney General Sessions are adamant, that, and you're going to start to see, I think, with the defense budget we're going to talk about next week when we bring the budget out, and also with certain things about the plan on ISIS and what General Mattis and these guys think. I think you'll start to see the other part of that. But the third, this regulation, every business leader we've had in is saying not just taxes, but it is also the regulation. And I think if you look at these cabinet appointees, they were selected for a reason, and that is the deconstruction. The way the progressive left runs is if they can't get it passed, they're just going to put it in some sort of regulation in an agency. That's all going to be deconstructed, and I think that's why this regulatory thing is so important.
Happy Monday, another Monday, and I think they turned the clocks yesterday. In fact, I know they did. Back with us this first hour tonight is his monthly visit, Jonathan Emord, heroic patriot attorney from Washington, D.C. Always we learn things when Jonathan is on. Hello, and how are you, Jonathan?
Doing well, Jeff. Thank you, and how are you?
Good. I'm still here, happy to be so, and watching things that I actually never thought I'd see. It's quite amazing.
It really is amazing. There's more being accomplished by this administration than really any other administration in modern history. It's truly remarkable.
Now, that's after 6 weeks, and that's the remarkable part. The other remarkable part on the flip side of that is how little the public is being told about these accomplishments by the mainstream media.
It is a conspiracy of silence, and it's profound, and it is really robbing the American people of an insight into how magnificent it is to see fundamental change. They wanted fundamental change. They wanted to see Donald Trump shake things up in Washington. He's doing it, and it's not being reported anywhere near as good as it should be. And if American people knew what was going on, I think they'd be, by and large, delighted by the changes that are taking place.
Well, it's up to you and programs like this to try to help them out. It's not going to come from you-know-who. They're not going to do it. Not going to do it. All right, what's on the agenda for tonight? What would you like to start with?
Well, I think one of the most remarkable and yet underreported things that's happening in Washington is Donald Trump's deregulation initiatives.
I totally agree. Couldn't believe, excuse me, I'm sorry, but thank you. I totally agree. I read a story or two about that a week ago. Nothing. This is a perfect example of what I was saying. Nothing about the significance, the import of it all, and it is extraordinary. Please, go ahead.
It is extraordinary. You know, in Republican administrations in the past, it was not uncommon for the vice president to be assigned the job of identifying regulations to be eliminated in the executive branch agencies, and this effort was largely half-hearted. There would be some activity in the beginning of new administration, and then after that, virtually nothing, and in fact, regulations would so outstrip any move towards deregulation that it just paled by comparison, the deregulatory efforts. Now, there was some difference in the Reagan administration. There was sincere and significant deregulation that took place, but not so in Bush 1 and not so in Bush 2. There was far more growth in the regulatory establishment than efforts at deregulation. Now, what's different about this, and this is striking, is that first, you know, Trump has issued 4 executive orders on deregulation, each with differing aspects in mind. We're more familiar with the executive order that says for every new regulation there has to be 2 that are eliminated. That's very clever because that creates a dilemma inside the regulatory agencies and slows down efforts at new regulation. What people don't realize is that there are fundamental changes that have taken place inside the agencies and outside the agencies on these issues of deregulation. First of all, the President has established in every executive branch agency a task force specifically dedicated to identify regulations continuously that should be eliminated and to work for their elimination within inside the agencies. In addition, the Office of Management and Budget is overseeing the deregulation efforts and is a conduit to the President to enable the President to have direct input on the deregulation efforts that are underway so that he's fully informed, and that those efforts going the other direction are enforced in part by his OMB director. Then this is quite extraordinary. His chief political strategist has reached out and is reaching out to major stakeholders who are suffering from regulatory constraints and to nonprofits and other groups that have been critics of regulation to identify what they think are the most important regulations that should be eliminated and the most important policies and guidance documents that were euphemistically termed guidances that are actually regulations to be eliminated. And so they're gathering information both from the regulated entities and from the people they're putting inside the agencies to ferret out deregulation. And then they're compelling the agencies themselves to make deregulation a priority. And then atop all of that, they're cutting immediately some $58 million in funding for the agencies, compelling the agencies to reduce their overall budgets by upwards of 15%. And they're driving this with the additional impetus of the secretaries. So the secretaries are also pushing this initiative. So what we have for the first time in modern history is a multifaceted approach to overcome the career bureaucrats, to overcome the static aspects of regulation with dynamic political pressure from inside the agency, outside the agency, directly down from the executive branch, and with the force of budgetary constraints, limit, and the hiring freeze. So what he is doing is literally shaking and knocking the crap out of the regulatory agencies, forcing them to downsize. And it's remarkable because it takes tremendous commitment to do this. It takes a dedication to get the job done, even when the wailing and gnashing and the political protest and opposition becomes most pronounced. He's put in place, and it's these things. A politically sensitive person would never do all of these things, because you'd have to be able to jump off any bandwagon at any time and be able to shut down your initiative at any time that you felt popular pressure was great, you needed to make a concession.
Sure.
He's doing this across the board with every executive branch agency, and he's forcing it through with multiple things set in place and in motion that are going to have a profound effect. And unfortunately, but for those who will start screeching about how the public is being harmed, there's not going to be any publicity about this.
No, of course not. No. This is a remarkable thing. Do you know who is helping him craft these measures? This is a big one. Now, he didn't just sit down it's Bannon. Oh.
Steve Bannon is one of the primary movers in this direction. He is, as you heard him at CPAC, he made the statement that, we were basically going to witness the destruction of the administrative state. That their intention is to get rid of administrative law, to basically get rid of the administrative state.
Yeah.
That would be a fantastic achievement that would help restore constitutional government in this country and would liberate the private sector. All of these actions, which are keenly observed by Wall Street, all of these actions are having a profound effect on altering business behavior in America. Companies are foreseeing the end of what have been entirely academic but profoundly consequential economically restraints on enterprise. They're watching these bogus restraints disappear, and they're taking steps in advance in anticipation of it to enter into the market new products, to create, expand their businesses, to hire more people. All of these things are welling up in the private sector, and there's a giddy attitude, at least on the part of my clients, about what they are going to be able to do as soon as these things come into place. The stakeholders out there, the ones who have been the small, medium-sized, and even big enterprises that have been constrained but want to be competitive, are just absolutely beside themselves with anticipation.
Well, they're taking the shackles off.
The big guys are scared to death. The ones who've had their market share protected by these regulations are scared to death because what people don't realize also, and this is a story that's not getting out that's critical, these regulations have by and large been put in place by Washington lobbyists from K Street who've achieved the objective of creating a public interest veneer over what really is anti-competitive regulation that imposes significant costs on market entry and significant costs on small and medium-sized competitors. And that has caused huge financial windfalls for the companies that are the market leaders. And so they don't want to see any change. They're scared to death, just like the insurance companies are about his changes with Obamacare. They're scared to death that this system, which they had planned to give them the lion's share, is going to fundamentally be changed in a way that will ratchet up competition, cut their profit margins, and make them suffer market competition in a real way. But that's all coming. And it means huge benefits for consumers. It means huge benefits for small and medium-sized companies, but it means real competition for a lot of guys on the top who have enjoyed government protection from competition, who've really owned the government. These are the old Republican types, some would say. They really don't care what party is in as long as their bureaucratic aims are achieved. But their system of protectionism, using government as the foil for against market entry, is going by the wayside very rapidly. there's a panic, actually, in Washington among a lot of the K Street types that have for years enjoyed cush existences as lobbyists without having to do too much other than reassure people that these companies are there with their money pouring into the coffers and Capitol Hill political action committees. Now there's a real problem because the power is shifted to the White House. The president's moving faster than Congress knows what to do. And the opposition to these changes is being just dismissed and blown away. They don't have a door, they don't have a foot in the door to stop this. So this is big stuff.
Oh, it's huge, but no one's talking. And I don't know how we're going to get this quantified and out to the public so they can understand what this means to them. I guess we'll just have to wait until enough of it is accomplished, and then maybe somebody will package it and put it out there. Somebody from the Trump administration. It's got to be done. We'll do our best here, but I mean, I've never seen anything like this. It is unique completely.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, Trump himself said that he give himself a C when it comes to communication, that their administration has not been able to convey the message about what's being done.
Boy, that's the truth, and that should be Priebus. He ought to be certainly in charge of a lot of the information being disseminated. And what's he doing? I don't get anything.
Well, there's a problem with this, and one of the problems is that no one's ever seen a president like Donald Trump, and that within 50 days of being in the White House, he's accomplished so much, and he's moving so fast. Ordinarily, a single one of his initiatives, Obama would have spent 6 months to develop, and would have had, all of this palaver out there and all of this propaganda. To support what would have been a half-hearted measure in some direction. In the case of Trump, he's making dramatic moves that have enormous consequences. He's doing it very rapidly, and the discussion about why it's being done, what actually is being done, what are the consequences, what are the effects, is largely not there. There are two reasons for it. One is the mainstream media hates his guts and doesn't want to report upon it. The second one is he's moving so fast that it's beyond the sophistication level of most people who are observing this and taking notes.
I think that's the key. I really do. I think it's too fast. They can't process it. They can't even hang on to it. Yeah, agreed. Totally.
But
so
I think this is going to give us an economy in the next year and a half. We're going to see some big changes. We're going to see an economy that is going to be catapulted into the next level with significant changes, structural changes in the market caused by a huge growth in the introduction of new products, in the level of competition, in the reduction in prices due to that competition, whether it's in the energy market, whether it's in the food and drug market, whether it's in consumer goods. All across the board, we're going to see remarkable changes, and consumers are going to feel these things because there's been a pent-up demand out there to get new stuff into the market, but people have refrained from doing it because of overtaxation, overregulation, and essentially a fear or dread of the consequences, the anti-competitive consequences of acting in a pro-competitive way. When those restraints are gone, and that pent-up demand is realized with the issuance of all these new products and expansion in small and medium-sized businesses and employment and the wealth of opportunities that will come into the marketplace, we're going to see some huge changes. Increase in GDP, increase in the availability of goods and services, decrease in the costs of those goods and services,
right,
and much greater choice. So that means, what does that mean? That ultimately means that the American standard of living is going to grow under this president by an amount that likely we have not seen.
And it won't. Yes, it will not be able to be ignored. It'll be that substantial. And people are going to say, well, what's going on here? They haven't been told, and all of a sudden they'll find overall that things are better. Are you better now than you were 4 years ago? Hell yes. It seems to me that what you're mentioning, Jonathan, behind the scenes, if I can use that cliche, is going on at such an extent and such a velocity that no one can, as I said, process it. But when the cows come home, this is going to be indisputable that perhaps the economy may be his biggest success in terms of, a venue during his presidency.
It really is a planned genius, really, because they intentionally are doing things at such a rapid clip that they're outpacing the opposition. They're outpacing and outflanking them. Yeah.
Nobody can roust any kind of an opposition up and go to the mainstream media and start putting together a campaign against it. It's done.
They're hit with so many things at once that they cannot determine as a group where to prioritize, what to go up against, and by the time they coalesce, it's already done.
Too late. I think you've said it perfectly. Yeah, I agree. It's very interesting. I'm not an economist. I don't have a real good sense of how it all works. Fairly good sense. But what you're saying to me is nothing less than revolutionary. And he's doing it basically by taking the scissors out and cutting a lot of this crap out of the system, just cutting the strings to these regulatory millstones that are all over the place, hanging like Christmas ornaments, if you will, all over the economy, dragging it down.
I think, some have said to me, and I don't know how much credence to give this, but some have said to me that basically if you have his ear and you get his attention, he'll follow your direction, meaning Donald Trump.
Oh, very interesting, yeah.
But my sense is quite the opposite. My sense is that he's very perceptive, that he's cutting through all the malarkey, and that he's getting right down to the issues here. And the reason, we already have a track record of this. He's done dramatic things that that focus like a laser beam on the problem, and he cuts out all the fat and the nonsense associated with it.
He's doing this himself. He's doing this. This is Donald Trump. This isn't some council on economic advisors. He's doing it. He sees it. He's a businessman. And he played to this early, but it just didn't gain the traction it should have in the media, such as it is.
And that's not to say that he doesn't delegate or whatever. It's to say that he has a clear vision. Right. You want your president to have a clear vision of where he wants to go, and to be able to accomplish it.
He's getting no credit for that whatsoever.
Right.
None.
And look at on the military side. He's chosen Mattis to run the Defense Department. Mattis has been given sufficient free rein so that he's able to change the rules of engagement, to develop a strategy that is actually being implemented in the field, the details of which are not being broadcast every 5 minutes to the media.
Right.
And they are accomplishing the objective of annihilating this enemy. And he's given a clear order to Mattis that he wants the complete destruction of terrorism in the world. He wants it to be completely eliminated. And with Mattis, this is just, this is what he's up to. He's up to this task. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and he's implementing it immediately. So it's just fantastic.
I'm watching very closely. I'm not liking what I see in terms of the Trump foreign policy as it is purveyed by the corrupt media at all. They're making it look like it is confused. They're making it look like it has no really central locus. It's just being... You got Pence saying one thing one day and somebody else saying another. So I'm hearing from you, though, that from what your sources are telling us, the interior core, the driving force of all this, has tremendous clarity, and it's being done. Now that's something you'll not hear. You won't hear.
Yeah, so there's really no confusion as to what the mission is now. There was tremendous, if people will remember, there was tremendous confusion about what the mission was under Obama the entire 8 years.
Yeah, it's horrible. All right, stand by. We'll be right back. Very interesting, as we always hear from Jonathan. We'll talk about Mexico next, and then the new health care proposal. Stand by.